What's good, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Harmon Jr. Please feel free to find me at Harmon Jr. on all your favorite social media across the interwebs. You know who I am. You know who I be. So, if you keep up with Full Circle Podcast regularly, you know that we normally drop every Wednesday. But today, we're dropping on Thursday, which in fact was our original drop date before it got moved up to Wednesday as it is today. But the reason for today's episode is that April 22nd, 2021 is the third anniversary of Full Circle Podcast. Yes, 1, 2, 3. We have been on the air for 3 full years now. You know, we went from strictly YouTube to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, to basically now anywhere a podcast is found. And it's been an amazing 3 years. And I just want to take this time to release this episode on our third anniversary. And for those who've been here since episode 1, since it was called The Odell Show, which, yes, horrible name, which, by the way, at the end of episode 1, if you go all the way back, you find out how I named the show in real time, because everything comes full circle like it did today. And if I'm being honest with you, there's no way, literally 0% chance that I thought I'd have been still making this podcast 3 years later. One, because if I'm being real, I figured I would have landed a big time video game industry job at IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, what have you by now, which that has not happened, but that doesn't mean I'm not, closer to my goal, which I believe I am. I get better and closer each and every day. And honestly, when I first decided to do this podcast back in 2018, this isn't a pandemic podcast. We was not born due or out of the pandemic. It was, how should I say? I wanted to get better in the video game industry. And, I started writing, obviously. I had my internship at Game Informer. And then after that, I was trying to freelance unsuccessfully, by the way. So anyone trying to freelance, it can be a real grind. I was trying to freelance, and then, God opened the door for me, and I was able to start working for an Australian site, Dusty Cartridge. Shout out to Dusty Cartridge. And then that enabled me to go to E3 for the first time in 2014, 15. Either 2014 or 2015 was my first E3, and I never missed one since until obviously 2020. But anyway, so in my career, I wrote a lot, and then I wasn't seeing a lot of progression. Like, I kind of peaked, stagnated for a while. Not peaked, but stagnated. So then I started getting really into video content, and then, hosting, doing video interviews, things of that nature. And it was rocky for a while. It is a lot harder than you think. And then I got pretty decent at that. And then the game industry is always changing, and you got to know how to write and stuff, but you need a lot of personality content. So April 22nd, 2018, I got my friend Jared Fredette, who was my co-host for a good long while, for those who remember. And we decided to do a video game podcast. It was a geek podcast, so video games, anime, nerd culture, but with a heavy focus on video games. And I remember thinking, I will do this as a resume builder, to fluff me up, make me look good. It's like, oh, what can this kid not do? He's amazing. And but here we still are. It's I've learned lots of skills since then, actually. I think it's made me a better interviewer, a better planner for sure. And this podcast, I'm just going to talk about the journey of how did we get from A to B. And so I'm going to tell y'all some fun stories about the podcast. And yes, I do got 3 topics for you today. It's fun stories about the podcast. How did we get here? Where are we going? What are we doing? That's not really 3 topics. It's all about the podcast, but you get the point. It's going to be multi-structured. So sit back, relax, catch a wave, because I'm going to be real. Like, a lot of y'all haven't been here since day one, and that's not an insult, because it was rough. Like I said, you can go to YouTube at the Game Fanatics and see all the episodes now. We used to have our own YouTube channel, Full Circle Podcast YouTube, but it would just make more sense since I was already doing lots of the Game Fanatics to integrate the podcast onto their YouTube channel. And so you can see that there. So when we first started in the house I lived in, we had a guest bedroom with nothing in it. And like I said, this was in April, but it's in Texas, so it's already pretty hot right now. And at the time, my roommate didn't believe me, but our AC had went out because I swear we run the AC all day and it never dropped below 80. And then, but this April in 2019 was particularly hot. Normally it's around, high 70s here in late April here in Texas. But this one was already hitting the 80s quite regularly. So when me and Jared would film in this guest bedroom with nothing in it, we set up, our little Walmart table, hung pictures on the wall. We did a little movie magic to make it look like we were in an actual studio, which sometimes I kind of miss because now I'm just in my computer room, as you see now, where I live now. And I got a little stuff, but me and Jerry, we had a eye for the theatrical. But every episode, maybe at least 30 minutes in, definitely by the end of it, we were just buckets of sweat. Buckets just dripping. It was insane. And not only that, so the camera that we used at the time, and I actually still have this camera and I still use it for things. Not right now, this is on a webcam for those watching on YouTube. But the lens, I might not be saying something right, but the lens had to reset. So after 30 minutes, we had a timer to go off in like 25 minutes. Because after 30 minutes, it would just shut off. That was like its limit. The camera's older, obviously, so if you were filming anything in the second, you hit approximately 30 minutes, it would shut off. And so our show was, honestly, at the beginning, maybe an hour, maybe closer to 40, 45 minutes. I think we wanted the hour, but I think we rarely ever hit that. But it was longer than 30, let me just say that. And so we had to always plan for the camera to shut off. We would end on a sentence, stop, turn it off, try to get approximately back in the same place, and then start again. And then, with the magic of editing, clean that up. And that's what we did. And if you look, we wore a lot of tank tops in the beginning, a lot. Like a lot of very, shoulders exposed, going to the beach type outfits because it was just literally that hot. I remember in June and July, like we had to get a towel because there would be buckets of sweat on the ground after we got done recording. And yeah, it sounds crazy because I was doing this for maybe a handful of views. And I do mean a handful, like across all platforms. We weren't on any podcasting sites at first, none of your Apple Music, Google Plays. We were just strictly on YouTube. And we would get maybe like, I don't say 30 views, if not less, which is crazy because of YouTube's algorithm. We now do get a lot of less views on YouTube. I think at our peak, we were getting like 2,000 to 3,000 on YouTube. But now, ever since we switched to, all the podcast platforms, and then after YouTube's change in policies and stuff and all this other things, they have to flag the content not for kids and things of that nature, it's back to those original numbers. But the podcast numbers are insane now. On Apple Music alone, I get about 1,000 listens in about the first day, and then about half of that on everything else. So about 1,000 listens on the first day on Apple Podcasts, excuse me. And then on, your Googles and your Spotify's and all that other good stuff, we get about 500 within the first day. So across all platforms, on a good episode, we can hit easily 5,000 to 7,000 listens. I don't know how long you have to listen to count as a listen, but we can get 5,000 to 7,000 listens within the first 24 hours, which is cool. And then at some point after that, each episode will kind of naturally rest between, on a low end episode, about 8,000 to 9,000, on a high end episode, about 12,000. So I'm proud of the, the growth there. shout out to all you people listening. And so that first year, season, whatever you want to call it, was rough. We were filming with outdated technology in a very extremely, quite literally, forgive my language, balls hot room, just dripping sweat everywhere, coming up with topics. And we were really doing the most in the sense that even the editing, sometimes we had special effects, like creating fireballs and swooshes and name cards. Oh, we had some 90s themed name cards in those first couple episodes. Like, look anything between like episodes 1 and 30 on YouTube. There you can now, listen to the audio, but on YouTube, seeing it is a evolutionary process. And I highly recommend, if y'all are ever bored and you just want to see growth in the purest, rawest, sometimes ugliest form, go to the Game Fanatics, go to the Full Circle Podcast section, and just scroll down and pick one of those original episodes. We used to have fun thumbnails. We don't anymore because Jared has moved on, but we used to have these crazy thumbnails. It was an insane amount of work to produce the show. Like, I'm talking about now I can have a guest record, and outside of the literal time of recording the episode, the editing process, chopping it up, is maybe, I don't know, depending on how Premiere and the editing programs are feeling, can be about an hour, 2 hours max. And then just uploading, coming up with stuff. It's honestly not that bad. But yeah, back then things would render. And don't ask me why. I don't know if it's because my laptop just sucked. It sucked at the time. Who am I kidding? It would take literally, on a good day, at least 24 hours to render. So to get the show up on Thursday, which there was the original release date like you're listening to right now, we would have to shoot Monday, Tuesday at the latest, literally, for the show to be done, complete, edited, and sent to all the places it needs to be sent. We would have to film no later than Tuesday, usually in the evening. And then, assuming nothing went wrong in the rendering process, the editing process, the final cut, the computer parts of it, it would take about, like I said, on a good day, 24 hours to render and whatnot. If nothing went wrong, and then the upload process took about half a day. Don't ask me why. I know you're like, oh no, this is 2018. There's no way. But I had a MacBook from college, so we're talking about 2010-ish MacBook, and literally all my equipment was hand me down. I still, I've always worked a full-time job. Gaming has never been my full source of income. It's been all my focus and attention and my passion and my energy. But in terms of my adult income, because for those who don't know, I am 30 years old at this point. So, 3 years ago, I was 27. I had to pay, bills, rent, car, all that good stuff. So the little change I did get from gaming either A, went to traveling expenses, to go to E3, PAX, Gamescom, TGS, etc. Or, it went to like a turkey sub from Subway. That's all the money that I was accumulating from gaming, despite what may seems like a lot of, things I've done. I do get paid mostly in exposure. I'm not complaining. I'm just letting you know that financially, all money towards investing in gaming went towards travel and events and, making sure I could like not sleep in a ditch and actually eat something while I was at cons. So when it came to equipment and things and upgrading, I heavily relied on other people, like shooting things, having to go to like friends' house that had editing computers, or just relying on their free time. And I was really trying to get away from that. And the podcast was step one of that, to like, I've had some basic skills of, editing and understand, but I needed to figure it out for myself. And, I was always telling myself, I'm going to get like a gaming laptop and figure it out and do this and that. And it finally got to the time where, I couldn't really wait on that per se. I couldn't just stop doing things. So I just worked with what I got. I asked people like, hey, you got a mic you're not using. Hey, you got a camera you're not using. Hey, you got some lights you're not using. And honestly, like I said, 90% of all that initial equipment was either hand me down or just stuff people didn't want. Like, you'll be surprised when you have friends in the space that, are wizards at the editing and software and all that stuff, that they always end up with like a mic that they don't need, an XLR cable they don't need. And, I'm willing to break bread, pay for it. But most of the times, like, I got 2 XLR cables from my friend, he's in a band. And, apparently, he has more cables and wires and whatnot than he can count. And he honestly just had some in his garage where he was just like, man, just take them. It's just clutter. And I was like, thank you. So yeah, first year was rough but fun. And then so we got to the point where we got decent. I won't say good, but we got decent. We got consistent. We were always consistent. I'll give us that. Like, it may not have been the best. We may have to re-upload episodes left and right because, God, it finally makes its way to YouTube and just something somehow went wrong in the 11th hour on minute 12. Just always something. I got to the point I was like, man, check the first 5 minutes, the last 5 minutes, and anything in between can just be overlooked, kind of. But, we got consistent. We got some type of formula down between me and Jared of, how to split the work. And because at first we're like, this is insane. It shouldn't take 2-3 days to get at this level to get a product out. And we decided that we needed a bigger space. What we're doing was good, but we wanted a bigger space, a tighter shot, all these things that just weren't possible in the guest bedroom we were shooting in, despite it being a full bedroom. There was a lot of ambient noise. There was, we did our best to, tarp it up and do certain things and all these other things that we had to do. And so after that, we said, all right, let's find somewhere we're gonna have to figure something out. And my mom had recently moved into a condo on her own, and she had a really big second bedroom that she used for various things. And I asked her if we could use that as a makeshift studio space. And so that's where we ended up, at my mom's place and our makeshift studio. And our second year of Full Circle Podcast was essentially there. It was essentially there at my mom's place. Me and Jared would meet up at my mom's place and shoot the podcast. And then things got really cool from there. We started to have guests occasionally. Had 2 different game developers on there. That's something that I want to do more going into the future. But we had 2. That was fun. And we had friends of the podcast. We started to do our quizzes that happened at least once a month. Jared would come up with these fun quizzes and things. And yeah, we got it down to a science at that point. It was a well-oiled machine. We were coming out on time. We could film an episode. I can go home, upload the stuff from the camera, do all these other things. And it was good for a good long time. We had live shows. We had a live show at PAX South. We had a live show at PAX East. We had a live show at San Diego Comic-Con, which was really cool. San Diego Comic-Con 2019, the last one in person. We had live shows, and the podcast got big enough to get me and Jared, if you wanted them, credentials to certain cons and things. So it was definite growth. And that was, year 2, season 2, as I like to call it, of the podcast. But then at some point, we got stagnant, and we got good, and then we got stagnant. Like, we reached a level of consistency. Everyone expected us to be there. They knew who we were. So we had to, we had to realize, how were we going to grow? How are we going to change? Make this more than what it was. It was initially a very much weekend fun project. For me, you know, it was a way for me to get better in the gaming space, get better known in the gaming space, if you will. But ultimately, to me, it was just to be a resume builder. And Jared, he just wanted to, you know, have fun on a geek podcast. And we were definitely doing that. And we both, at the same time, you know, without talking, came to the conclusion that our initial goals for the podcast have both been reached. I had, at this point, we were about, when we were having this feeling, we were probably about at least 75 episodes in of the podcast, maybe 80. We had, you know, our 50th special. We had even giveaways. We gave away some super SNES classics. Gave away that. We had a Pokemon giveaway with Sword and Shield. You know, we were hitting all the usual beats. But for Jared, I know it had stopped being fun per se because he had reached his goal. And for me, it just became, it didn't become a chore, but it became a question mark. Like, why am I doing this? I hit my initial goal, and now we're just kind of keeping the lights on, so to speak, because at this point, Full Circle Podcast had no real purpose. We had kind of just, like I said, we had hit all the marks we set out to hit. We probably, for the both of us, had kept this going longer than anticipated. And so we decided, in an effort to, you know, keep things going, make it a little bit easier on both of us, we decided to go to audio only. So we deconstructed the studio at my mom's place. And I think around episode, let's say somewhere between 75 and 85, I don't remember exactly, went to audio only because, like I said, we had finally got on all the podcast services, the main ones. We might be on all of them now, but there's probably a little one out there missing. There's some holes in there. Like, I know we're not on iHeartRadio. Someone told me that, so I don't know. I'll try to get it up on iHeartRadio. I don't know what that process is. But we went to audio only, and, you know, things got a little better. We were able to have more intellectual discussions, do deeper dives, since we didn't have to worry about a studio presence and all the things that went into that. It was a lot easier because we didn't have to worry about the camera, because, oh yes, the camera thing was still very much a thing. And the episodes at this point had got actually, you know, up to 45 minutes to an hour consistently each episode. So that was really, really consistently annoying to have to deal with the shutter of the camera turning off. Oh man. And then even though the editing process got better, there were still days where, like, the MacBook couldn't hack it. I mean, I have a nice gaming PC now off to the side that you can't see, so I can, you know, live stream this and do all those fun things that, you know, you should do on the podcast. And, you know, no delay. Ooh, because yeah, we used to have the audio sync because there was a delay in the camera. All sorts of unfun things, but we had got good of working with not so good material. And, you know, that even though we made it work, it was still a chore. It never stopped being a chore. So us having finally broke free of the studio space and the limitations with that really was a burden off our shoulders. We could both breathe and have a sigh of relief, and that was really fun. I really enjoyed that time. But then also, you know, Jared, shout out to Jared again, greatest co-host ever. Greatest co-host for something that he was just purely doing for fun, not to advance his career, not to get his foot into any creative doors, just something to do. You know, so I appreciate him rocking with me. So for our 100th episode special was also our goodbye special to Jared. And I knew this was coming, of course. We had talked about it. And, you know, I couldn't blame the man. I mean, 100 straight episodes, more or less, cons and things, and you're basically just doing this with your buddy who's trying to make a name for himself, and you're just kind of along for the ride. Like, I can't thank him enough, because very few people would do that for that long, that many episodes, that much effort, and the number one kicker, not seeing a cent from that. I mean, one could argue press pass to San Diego Comic-Con may be worth this weight in gold, but like I said, we're still adults, we still got bills, and so for Jared to take so much time out of his schedules and days, I really appreciated that. But so I knew Jared was going, and I was thinking, all right, is it time to pull the plug on Full Circle Podcast? I'm not going to have a co-host. It's going to be just me. How am I going to do this? And then, so this is where a lot of you come in, actually. A lot of you started coming in what I like to call season 3 of the show. Season 1 of the show being when we were janky and bad. And, but we were learning to get in there. Season 2 is when, we got the new studio space and we finally ironed out all the kinks and we were going good. And then season 3 is the start of the solo era without Jared. It's just, me, Odell. And I was like, all right, Odell, how am I going to keep this going? How am I going to keep it fresh and entertaining and interesting and, get better and grow? And I thought, well, what if, thinking of like Kind of Funny Games Daily, or, a Min-Max, or GameSpot After Dark, or any successful gaming podcast out there, which, there are several of them. I've been featured on, a few of them, which thank you to everyone who's ever had me on their show, both big and small. How I'm going to keep this fresh, how I'm going to keep the wheels rolling. And I said, I will have industry guests on every week as a guest. Don't know how I'm going to do it. Don't know who I'm going to find. Don't know how many people are going to say yes. This podcast, by the numbers, is insanely small, And when I say by the numbers, we're not hitting 100,000 per day. We're not hitting 1 million unique listeners. I was like, man, I don't know, but I'm going to try. I was like, I've been in this industry for about a decade now. And when I say industry, I mean, actively trying to break into it. Because I always tell people, I don't see myself holier than thou. If there's a line, there's people who this is their full-time job, career. They pay the bills, they do the things, and you have the people where it's not. And I've always been in the category, thus far that it's not. So I can't sit here and act like, I'm a Greg Miller just because I've been on some stuff and people might recognize me on some things. I never want to get this, ego around myself just because I found successes where some people haven't, because this industry is really hard and we're all really just trying to make it in our own ways. And you kind of have to be a jack of all trades. You can't really slack in the writing. You can't slack in the personality, the videos, content. You always have to be ready at all moments. And I will tell you, I've learned really hard that I always tell people I'm always missing the skill at the wrong moment. When they're looking for a super writer, it seems like I was a super video guy. When they're looking for a super video guy, I was a super writer, so on and so forth. But long story short is that we're all in this together, and I wasn't going to assume that people would come on and talk to me. By the grace of God, they did. So season 3 was, I will have industry guests, big and small, from far reaches of the gaming industry. That was the promise I made. And I said, and when season 3 kicked off around episode 104, 105, somewhere in there, and kicked off, it did. I started with my cohorts for the game Fanatics. Then I moved on to fellow creatives that I just knew from the industry. Shout out to Frank, shout out to Brandon, shout out to Black Crystal, shout out to Julius. I mean, I could list you all, but y'all were some of the early adopters and with me there, and I appreciated that. And then next thing you know, I ended up with Andy McNamara, which was the ex editor in chief at Game Informer, and then I ended up with people like Casey DeFreitas from IGN, and then I ended up with people like Michael from GameSpot, and I was just floored and honestly just touched at the people willing to come and talk to me on this show and for y'all to listen to, and I've even had people like there's people in this industry that I feel like you never see them in the spotlight, but they're so pivotal to a outlet success. And I've just got to know them, going to cons, I would see these people a lot, like, Brandon Hunt, who was at IGN, and, now he's doing his own thing, man. He's killing it with his video production and his new company that he created. That I would see these people behind the lens, just responsible for such great content. And then, I was just like, if I can show the world how great they are on my show and how amazing they are, because without them, your favorite content wouldn't exist, or it might not exist at the quality that it exists at. And, they were willing to be on the show. And again, forgive me for anyone I'm missing shouted out. And it really took off. I would get comments and stuff from like people would hit me up through various social medias and be like, "Oh wow, that was cool," or "Oh wow, that was amazing," or "Oh wow, I didn't know that," or "Oh wow, you had that person on." And then, it was crazy. We're still doing it. Next week we're gonna have a very special lady in the industry. I think she's very popular and people like her. I'll leave that for next week. You have to wait for that. But, we didn't stop. And, because I was really worried at first that I could probably do this for a while. Maybe I can get, 10 guests, 15 guests, 20 guests. But at some point, it was going to stop. I was going to run out of people. But so far, we're still going strong. Season 3, and I guess since we're at the year, I'm about to enter season 4. I got some things that I want to do, but I can't say season 4 is gonna start next episode. But definitely by the end of the year, we'll reach season 4. We'll do the bells and whistles that will signify the beginning of a new era. But yeah, we started to just get crazy amounts of people, and all I had to do was ask. I planned. I've asked people, and these people are busy, man. So I really appreciate them joining, because some were just shots in the dark, just real shots in the dark. And I don't know if some people know just how thankful and grateful that they said yes to me was. I really don't. I'm not downplaying myself at all, but there's just some people that I asked, and I feel like it had to be the grace of God they even agreed to be on, considering their workload, who they are, and what they do. And I'm really just trying to. I plan on having on some surprises between now and the end of the year. Some guests. If you thought I had some crazy guests on before, especially Pokemon Month. Pokemon Month was a great month this past February, having some great Pokemon masters from around the industry. If you want to listen to some great episodes, go to the February episodes. Well, there was one guest we couldn't have because we had to freeze down here in Texas, and scheduling and the lack of electricity, lights, and gas really dampened that week. So we didn't have all. We had 4 guests. We were supposed to have 5 throughout the course of the month. We only had the 4. So, but go back and listen to all those episodes are great, in my opinion. The best stint of episodes thus far. I love Pokemon, so of course. But going forward, I plan to have bigger, better, brighter guests, and that includes, again, from all corners of the industry, from names known far and wide to people you probably never heard of, but you should definitely know, definitely know, because there are people out here putting in the work, and I see it because I put the work in too. And there's people I really want, to give the platform to, and I know I don't have the biggest platform, but I just want to highlight them the best way I can, because there's so many people that I feel that don't get the credit they do, may never get the credit they do, what have you. And to encourage, because this can be really mentally draining, especially when you're receiving no, I don't want to say income, because a lot of people receive income, but when I say not livable income, meaning, a lot of us have to work a day job or multiple jobs, different outlets, things of that nature. It can be a real spiritually draining, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, all that good stuff. So sometimes, it's real hard to just wake up and put on that shirt, pump yourself up with a little healthy screaming, and get the ball rolling. So yeah, that's been the story of Full Circle Podcast. From back how it all started, how it grew, where it's now, and where we're trying to go. So this show is a lot of me, a lot of Jared in the beginning. He was he helped me figure out so much stuff. And then a lot of the industry now, it's become a place, hear people from the industry and what I would like to consider, fun conversations. I always welcome just, getting off the trail on the show and just going places, just try to, always, be timely, topical, talk about things that people are caring about, but also, just have a conversation between another person in the industry, because we're all gamers. We're all just regular people at the end of the day. Just, people that love gaming and people who are just here to have fun in this space and, produce content. And if people like it, cool. If people don't like it, cool. If people, look forward to every week, great. If they catch an episode every now and again, great. Because I really learned that in this, you have to have a passion to just do it. And do it for this long. And, I always look to, like Pass the Controller. They've been going so long and so hard. And, I wish the Legion of Groom, as I like to call him, all the success in the world. And there's so many other people and so many other podcasts I can shout out. And, you have things like OK Beast where, they did the damn thing. Blessed made it kind of funny. And Alex is a Game Informer. And, that's just a great story of success. And he said, no, more power to him. I've thought about, getting my own producer on this show and helping grow. But, we'll see. We'll see what has season 4 planned. But, as always, people, I'm Oda Harmon Jr. Please feel free to find me at Oda Harmon Jr. You can hit me up on social media anytime. There is a Patreon, which, Patreon is still fairly new to this. That wasn't added until maybe of a quarter of the way into season 3. I mean, we're still in season 3 now, but it was just something people started asking for that I'm not going to say I never wanted. I have nothing against money. Like, we all need money to go around the world, but I didn't want to ever make this show seem like it was something like I'm just really doing this trying to, get a handout. I'm trying to charge for this content or anything, but people kept asking for it. So, I finally created one. It's very humble. My tiers are very low. My goals are very simple. It's just, getting equipment for the show, which I was able to do, so I appreciate it. So, shout out to the Patreons, Gabriel Garcia, Rachel Coleman, Baker Rice, Ryan Frazier. Y'all are all saints, so you could donate, join a tier, you could do whatever. So I appreciate those people asked who wanted to, support financially, because that is a big ask in my opinion. You may think I'm sounding crazy, but I really feel like that is a big ask of anyone, to donate money like that, because I feel like it's, it's not anyone's responsibility to help my growth, support my passion, and help me get where I want to go, which is why, I'm always working hard and willing to, do things that, get paid in exposure, even though I know that it's frowned upon. What you gotta do, you gotta do. So when I say I'm eternally grateful to you all, anyone who's ever gave it, $1 or whatever, I appreciate that. And I want to keep creating content, keep giving y'all good stuff to look forward to. So happy 3 years, Full Circle Podcast. Happy new followers, old followers, people. So I hope you're enjoying. I hope you enjoyed this look behind, the mirror, the looking glass, the two-way mirror, all those analogies. So yeah, that's how you know. So this is still a very humble production, and I'm happy to see it grow in all these crazy ways. And I don't know where we're gonna be a year from now, but just bigger and better. That's all I can say. Bigger and better guests, more surprises. Hopefully we're back at some cons and I can do some crazy cool things like I was doing back in the day. And and some of you listening, I plan on having some listeners on, fairly soon, just as a thank you. Thank you for, always engaging me and stuff. And I'll do the little things I can. But as always, have a great week, everybody, and be blessed. Until next time.